Members of the Grinnell Class of 2017, I'm here today to tell you that you are ready. That is my job today, because it is customary at this time of year for college presidents to stand on stages just like this and close commencement ceremonies by telling you confidently and enthusiastically that our institutions have prepared you to face a future that is both harrowing and magnificent in its complexity. But how can I know that? Can I predict the specific complexities the world will face next year, or in the next decade, or 50 years from now, or even next week for that matter? Can I unequivocally state that I am confident that your Grinnell education has prepared you well for what? That I can't say, that I don't know. While thinking of this year's charge to graduates, I reread a fairly famous essay by the great Nigerian novelist Chinua Achebe, entitled The Education of a British Protected Child. Achebe was educated in the colonial system, where British educators dictated how Nigerian children could and would be taught. I was intrigued by the title because my father was largely educated as a black boy around the same time as Achebe in a different part of that same colonial system, and I grew up hearing every day the echoes of that educational system. Toward the end of this essay, Achebe recalls a moment in his final year of college at a Nigerian university that was still largely run in the colonial manner, largely from London. One day, Achebe complained about his disagreements with the college administration to James Welch, a white British professor of religious studies whom he admired. Welch replied, "We may not be able to teach you what you want or even what you need. We can only teach you what we know." Of this reply, Achebe wrote, "Even in exacerbation, James Welch stayed calm and wise. What else can an honest and conscientious teacher teach but what he knows? The real teachers I've had in my life have been people who did not necessarily know what my needs would ultimately be, but went ahead anyhow in good faith and with passion to tell me what they knew, leaving it to me to sort out whatever I could use in the search for the things that belong to my peace." This is what I know your teachers and mentors and your various communities have done for you at Grinnell. We've not always been a perfect institution, but we've been an evolving one, growing and adapting to new challenges, sometimes in real time as they're happening. Sometimes we've found innovative solutions, and sometimes we've hit walls. Through it all, our faculty and staff do their very best to offer up what they know, to model a spirit of critical reflection and challenging inquiry while sharing what they've experienced, but even that sometimes falls short. Achebe's meditation on the imperfections and the injustices of his colonial education leads him to this insight. The great thing about being human is our ability to face adversity down by refusing to be defined by it. Here on this campus, you've likely experienced both joy and frustration, both success and adversity, both togetherness and conflict. These dualities are at the core of a residential liberal arts education, especially an education that challenges you to become open-minded and open-hearted, to be defined not only by your academic and extracurricular triumphs, but also by the dignity and might that you bring to your struggles. Once, during a particularly busy commencement season, the famous university chaplain, the late Reverend Peter Gomes, told students that he worried that commencement speakers, himself included, were, quote, selling you only too willing buyers, a bill of goods. He went on to say, instead of preparing you for success, we should be preparing you to cope with failure when things don't turn out right, whether it is your marriage, your job, your children, or your nation. Instead of training you to be soaring eagles, Gomes writes, we should be training you to be camels with capacities for endurance when you find that your life has come to a desert. And that is one thing that you can be certain of. You will eventually find yourself, your family, your community, And perhaps in these troubled times especially, you may even find your nation in a desert. Your fortitude tested, progress infinitesimal, and certainty impossible. Then what? Then you must remind yourself that infinitesimal progress is progress, that working toward what is right, even without certainty, is honoring humankind's greatest possibilities. One of the historical figures I find most inspiring is probably someone many of you have never heard of, an educator and activist named Septima Clark. In the late 1950s, as the civil rights movement gained momentum across the American South, Septima Clark began a training program for African Americans known as citizenship schools. Hundreds of these schools bloomed in homes and the back of stores across the South in that decade and the next, teaching African Americans not only the literacy skills they needed to actually register to vote, but also an understanding of their obligations and rights as citizens and, yes, ultimately as protesters. Through these schools, tens of thousands of African Americans not only ensured their right to vote, but also understood how they might establish local voting leagues and lobby for better municipal services and build the confidence and the knowledge necessary to go out and campaign for the basic rights of American citizenship. Remembering the beginnings of the citizenship schools in the 1950s, Clark said the following. She said, "Don't ever think that everything went right. It didn't. Many times there were failures, but we had to mull over these failures and work until we get them ironed out." Mulling over our failures probably doesn't sound like a very inspiring activity, but both Achebe and Clark knew that lasting change and revolutionary thinking could come from imperfect educations and failed experiments, that they could come from having one's mind expanded and one's endurance tested in less than optimal conditions. They knew, in short, that possessing what Gomes called capacity for endurance meant a constant striving toward what they believed was right, even when it was not popular or convenient or easy. Out of a British colonial education that stemmed from a system that Achebe knew was essentially a denial of human worth and dignity, he opened his mind and his heart, enduring many trials to become what many have called the father of modern African writing and Africa's greatest storyteller. Out of the depths of the Jim Crow South, Septima Clark established a new, quiet, and ultimately revolutionary way of educating and empowering African Americans in the years leading up to the more visible, headline-grabbing moments of the civil rights movement. And so the truth is this. We, your Grinnell College professors, mentors, staffers, and leaders, have done our very best to give you everything we know, to teach you and inspire you to the very best of our abilities. In the true liberal arts tradition, we've taught you critical thinking skills, research methods, and creative practices that will serve you well no matter where your career path takes you. But even that likely won't be enough to protect you from failures and from long treks across deserts. But there's good news. All around the world, Grinnell alumni like yourself have learned not just to soar like eagles, but to endure like camels. While we've had our share of technological revolutionaries and political leaders and great artists graduate from this college, we've had far more graduates who've led quieter but equally meaningful and even beautiful lives, and have done so day by day, year by year, making lasting social and cultural impacts on our world because of steady, often behind-the-scenes work. Their lives have been defined often by unglamorous but transformative work that you will never see played in a video on YouTube. Because of their open minds, their generous hearts, and their willingness to endure the imperfect systems while striving toward perfection, they have shaped the world in remarkable ways, as I know you will. In closing, I leave you with my warmest wishes and my greatest hopes. May you continue to grow, bringing with you on your journey of excellence visions of action and the possibility for a better world. Congratulations. I now ask that everyone stand as you are able to receive the benediction.
As this ceremony ends, O God, we are grateful for this time of honoring these graduates. As they go forth from Grinnell, guide them as they grow and change, and as they make important contributions to their communities throughout our world. As bright young leaders, help them to have the resources and the courage to engage in work where their knowledge and their gifts are most needed. Give them the opportunity to do what feeds their body as well as their soul. May they always remember these years, draw on this community when necessary, mentor future Grinnellians when possible, and return to visit their college home as often as they are able. May they find happiness in their days and love in their hearts, but above all, may they live in hope and in health. With these, so much is possible. We look to the future with great expectations. Peace be upon us all on this day and always. Amen.